Hi guys, hope you're doing well. We have our last mock interview session coming up for this year on Thursday, 8 p.m. EST. As usual, just head to pageantmock.com. A reminder that it's only $19.99 US per session, and our VIPs can attend as many as they want for no extra charge. That's part of their membership. Been having a lot of good results. Had a full house last week, so to speak, and this is a chance for you to practice under somewhat realistic conditions, and I wanted to make that available to as many people as possible, which is why it's $19.99 per session and not hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which is what I would charge for a private session, and many other pageant interview coaches do as well. I wanted to jump in here quickly this week and talk a little bit about pageant fitness. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but tomorrow we are recording an episode of our new podcast, Pageants and Tangents, and we're going to be talking about pageant fitness, and not so much from me, but from one of our co-hosts, Morgan, who, if you don't know, is a pretty well-known personal trainer she's in South Carolina in the States, and she's got a very good track record. If you see how many other women love her as well, I think that speaks volumes, and that's initially why I reached out to interview with her, because I could tell she had a connection with the clients. She put the clients first, and that doesn't happen that often. But just from my own experience, when it comes to fitness, and not only my experience in terms of my journey with health, nutrition, things like that. I was a former tennis coach, played a lot of tennis, so I have some experience, not a personal training qualification by any means. Apologies for the plane noise above. But also working with you guys and hearing about some of the struggles you've had. I think the first thing I should say is I'm not personally a huge fan of the way that the swimsuit component, if your pageant has a swimsuit component, I'm not a huge fan of, there's a certain cognitive kind of dissonance that goes on with it. And bear in mind, I'm a former tennis coach, and so I was a lot into fitness. It was about how you perform, not how you look. Now, I'm not saying that when you compete in a swimsuit, you're not allowed to enjoy it. I'm not saying that you don't find it empowering, because a lot of you do. What I'm saying is that the idea that it's about fitness is not accurate. And I say this because, again, you can't judge someone's fitness based on looking at them up on stage. And so if we were to actually have a genuine fitness component in pageantry, the only way to judge that is by actually having a fitness competition. Now, a fitness competition doesn't involve parading on stage in a bikini. A fitness competition involves doing fitness, and please, not just yoga or Pilates. I get so kind of aggravated whenever anyone in pageants go, oh, we'll have a fitness section, oh yeah, we'll bring in a Pilates instructor. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, isn't that a bit cliche? Like, can't we do something else? Like, I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she said, yeah, like boxing or kickboxing, right? I was a fan of doing, those obstacle courses like Tough Mudders and things like that, or even get them out to play tennis, lifting weights, doing I don't know, like a CrossFit, or doing rope, climbing up rope, anything that actually is fitness based, because there's a huge difference between measuring that and putting someone up in a swimsuit on stage. Now, having said all that, I know that some of you feel that if you're going to perform well on stage, specifically in the swimsuit section, it is at least partly, if not largely, about aesthetics and the look. Now, I get that, and I'm not going to try and persuade you otherwise. And there are some judges who, rightly or wrongly, simply judge a girl based on how skinny she is and probably want her to be a size 0. All I'm going to tell you, please find a trainer, and I would suggest Morgan for obvious reasons. You can look her up on Instagram. She's very available very available. She responds to messages quickly, and she does customized training sessions, and she does them online, so you can access them from anywhere, even if you were in Australia. But please don't think that you have to starve yourself in order to achieve the result you want in pageantry. There is a way that you can have your cake and eat it too, which is a bit of an ironic saying to be using, given that I'm talking about not starving yourself to death. But here's what I mean. If you get fit, if you get strong, you put on muscle mass, right? That automatically means that you're going to have a certain confidence about your body, how you hold yourself, and even better, as you build muscle mass. Muscle burns energy, even when you're just sitting there on your butt. Fat does not burn any energy. So one of the best things you can do, and I know Morgan talks about this all the time, I think Morgan's actually really not a fan of running at all, which same for me. I find it incredibly boring. I'll run on the tennis court chasing a ball, but I can't just jog. But if you put on muscle, so whether it's lifting weights, and it doesn't have to be weights, but let's take that example. If you lift weights, you put on muscle, which by the way is very difficult. You don't lift a weight once and go, oh my God, my biceps are so huge, I'm so big, I'm going to scare everyone. No. It's not that easy. We wish it was that easy. It's really not. And it's more difficult in general for women than it is for men, because women have less testosterone, obviously. But if you put on muscle, you're going to be burning more energy even when you sit on your butt watching your Netflix. So you can then look at this as, well, that'll help me with my fat loss, not weight loss, fat loss. Even when I'm sitting there, or you could eat a little bit more. And one of the things is, you'll find if you do heavy weight training, and I don't mean heavy, but I mean intense weight training, like done properly, not just lifting a weight and without any ideas to, it's 2 pounds, yeah, I'm lifting a weight, whatever it is for you. But when you do structured weight training, that is with the goal of getting stronger, not bigger, but getting stronger, getting fitter, one of the things you'll find very early on is you get very hungry. This is one thing I know. I wanted to see how much muscle I could put on. This is one of those things one of the experiments I was sort of performing on myself as a human guinea pig. And I am someone who has never put on muscle easily. I have a lot of muscle in my lower body, but that's because of the tennis. That's one of the things I was going to say. If you have a fitness, like if you're a dancer in particular, or a gymnast or something like that, you'll probably have very good core strength. You probably have very good legs. Might be the upper body you need to work on, but that muscle really helps keeping everything else together and helping keep the fat away. But if you start working out specifically to build muscle, to add mass, which is slightly different from adding strength, but stay with me here. If you do that, you'll find that you get super hungry. So one of the things that you need to do is fuel your body correctly. And so what I'm suggesting is find a trainer, whether it's Morgan or someone else, but someone who understands that, first off, you don't want to starve yourself to death. Secondly, you're not just going to be eating lettuce the whole day long, right? Or you're not cutting out huge major food groups, which I think is always very, very dangerous. I think if you're going to do that, you have to do it under with extreme knowledge, not under extreme supervision. But you can't please don't just look it up on TikTok and go, oh, this fitness influencer said, all I need to do is eat cheese and I'll lose weight. No. But if you do it properly with the advice of a trainer such as a Morgan, yes, you can get yourself aesthetically to look great. So we're probably talking about, losing fat, having that definition, especially around your midriff, that sort of thing. But you can also not injure yourself, not harm yourself, and you can actually genuinely get fitter, stronger, and faster. It's like that. I think it's the Olympic motto. Is it higher, better, or whatever it is? I think it's in Latin or Greek. But you can have your cake and eat it too. And I say this from having been around a lot of athletes. If someone is super fit, right, especially around the age that most of you guys are, which is maybe, in your mid-20s or something like that, mid-20s to mid-30s, you can tell when someone is super fit. I could see it on the tennis court all the time. And even more so with the women, I will say that the way that women's bodies seem to adapt to physical exercise, it seems to be more visible. I don't know what it is, but the way that an athletic woman, like a tennis player, would carry herself, you could just tell. And they are, so of course, they build muscle mass, as I said. For tennis players, it tends to be in the legs, which is why I can never find a pair of jeans that fits off the rack. But you can get fitter, you can get stronger, which is good for you. And you can look good into the bargain. Talking aesthetic goals when you get onto the stage in your swimsuit. I don't think there is any merit to the idea of simply trying to lose weight. I think that goal is extremely dangerous. I caution against it because people don't really know what that means, because when you say lose weight, I feel that all you're doing is looking at a number on a scale. I think that is the least useful metric when it comes to your health journey, and I think it's the most dangerous. I think there's a certain validity to it if you are extremely overweight, but in general, I would stay away from that. And you can go into details with your trainer or take on Morgan and ask her what the metrics are, what the useful metrics are for measuring your fitness journey. But please don't just, because it's coming to New Year's, which is why this has been on my mind, because we all set New Year's resolutions, and if you're a pageant girl or even just a human, one of the biggest ones is, I want to lose weight, right? But that's kind of that's a very nebulous, vague goal, and I don't think it's well-founded. I'd rather you say a fitness goal, right? Like I can do 10 push-ups, 20 push-ups, or I can run a mile in 6 minutes, whatever it is. But I don't think there's much merit in thinking that simply losing weight and looking a certain way is going to win you anything on the pageant stage. And my focus has always been on what's best for you guys. If it does indeed turn out that there are judges at your pageant who simply want you to be as skinny as possible, I would say screw them. Just forget them. I don't want you guys twisting yourselves in knots to impress people with such outdated ideals, and it's nothing to do with fitness. This is what I don't really agree with when it comes to the swimsuit section. The way it's done at the moment is not about fitness. And again, ask me how I know. My years of experience as a tennis coach specifically, if you're skinny, great. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to be the best player on the tennis court. Because guess what? A sport, a fitness, needs you to perform. How do you perform? One of the things you need is strength. You also need lung capacity. You need to be able to recover. You need to be flexible. There's so many different ways of measuring fitness, which is why I say, like, having you just on stage in a bikini, that's not a measure of fitness. That is an aesthetics first competition. You can make some inferences about watching someone on stage, which you can't really tell. But that's a discussion for another day. The way it stands at the moment in pageantry with the swimsuit competition, yes, it is mainly about aesthetics. I don't care what anyone else says. Okay, you can say it's about attitude, and I agree with that. But at the end of the day, you do want to look a certain way when you get on stage. And I don't think anyone's saying, well, I want to be, larger when I get onto the pageant stage. Everyone wants to tone up or however you want to call it. All I'm saying is that there's a healthy way of doing it that actually will make you healthier, fitter, stronger, live a longer and better life, as well as achieving your aesthetic goals. Please do not think that the only way that you can perform well on the swimsuit stage is to starve yourself. Because that's what I said about a couple of minutes before, even if that was the case, and the only way for you to win on the pageant stage in the swimsuit section was to drastically lose weight, I really want you to ask yourself, is that worth it? Is that a system that I want to be part of? Is that a system I want to promote to young women everywhere, young girls who look up to me? And I say this, and I might get in trouble for this because people say, you shouldn't say that about pageants. I've spoken to multiple pageant girls who have competed, who weren't overweight by any means. They looked amazing. And after a discussion with a pageant coach, they developed eating disorders. That has to stop, yeah? For men and women, both. Please, please, please look at how your body performs more so than how it looks, because I think we all have a certain blueprint and there's not much we can do to change that. Like, I was at the gym and I was working on my leg strength and I could leg press a lot. I think I was up to like 400 kilos. It was ridiculous. Not pounds, kilos, which is north of 800 pounds. And I was a skinny Asian kid, but because of the tennis and just genetic blueprints, I had very strong legs. But my point is, there were people in that gym who looked stronger than me. and they simply weren't. So I would look really skinny and be able to lift 800 pounds, whereas someone else who had to lift 800 pounds would be twice my size. Like my best friend he puts on, muscle mass without even thinking about it. For me, it's much more of a struggle. So there is a certain amount of genetic blueprinting in there that you can't do anything about. So really trying to think, I want to look like that. You may not know what you have to do to your body to look like that. What I would suggest is focus on getting fitter, stronger, faster, healthier, feeling better about yourself. And the way your body evolves with that, it will evolve naturally on its own. And as you feel better, you will, in inverted commas, look better, because that's that confidence that we talk about being on stage. I don't think there's anything more miserable than someone who starves himself to death to get ready for the swimsuit competition and then, let's say, doesn't place, is really disappointed because they've starved themselves or cut out major food groups. They've endangered their health, and then the first thing they do afterwards is binge on junk food and then go straight back into unhealthy eating. That is a cycle that I need you to promise me you're going to stay away from. Don't buy into it, because the more you do it, the more it's going to happen to future contestants, and we don't want that. And again, I'm going to say this very explicitly. If there are judges out there who are judging you specifically on how skinny you are, they should be thrown out of the room. I don't have any room for those people at the table, because again, coming from my own background in terms of fitness and working with young women, is extraordinarily harmful for anyone who might be perceived to be in a position of power to be telling a girl that she needs to lose weight outside of actual genuine medical conditions. And I come from a family of doctors. Yes, if you are 400 pounds overweight, yes, then we're talking about, yes, you need to lose weight, but it doesn't need to be a plan. Just, eat less, move more. I know that's not the best advice, but when you're that overweight, anything would be improvement. But outside of that genuine medical concern, please focus on getting healthier, fitter, stronger, faster. Measure those metrics, and I promise you they'll improve faster than any body metrics. Or measure those fitness metrics, and then your body will begin to evolve and transform. If it doesn't evolve or transform the way you like, what I would suggest is get a trainer, number one, and work out how you can adjust your fitness regimen to get you closer to what you want to look like. So for example, the prototypical tennis player has a certain look. They are lean in general, lean, strong in the legs, and they have muscle, but they're not bulky. So if that sounds like what you want, then I'd say, hey, play tennis, right? Swimmers, there's such a thing as a swimmer's body. Swimmers will tend to be broader across the shoulders. You can probably see a bit more muscle, right? But they're not as leg-centric as a tennis player. If you look at ballerinas or dancers, obviously fairly lean, and there's certain things that we can discuss about eating disorders when it comes to ballet and dancing, but again, strong in the legs. And so decide, okay, if you do want to look a certain way, rather than going, okay, I want strong legs, I'm going to go into the gym and all I'm going to do is every day is leg day. No. Look at people who've actually achieved the success or achieved the result or the body that you want. Look at how they did it, but don't just copy it, is what I'm saying. Model after what they've done. So don't necessarily do, a ballerina's workout, but have a look. Okay, they did this sort of workout. They took up dance, they took up ballet. And if you're doing a lot of dance, you're doing a lot of ballet, then obviously your legs are going to get stronger. Obviously, you're probably going to lose weight, and you have a certain amount of core strength. Or gymnasts, for example, tend to have very good balance, very good core strength, and there's a certain body type associated with that. So I hope that makes sense. Don't just go off half-cocked on the latest TikTok fad and think that, because it worked for them, it's going to work for me. There have been too many stories about, TikTok influencers who have inspired people to do really dangerous things. Find someone who really knows what they're talking about. Find someone, additionally to that, who's actually lived it. That's a good way of knowing that their advice works, by the way. It's because they've lived it. If you have a personal trainer who's grossly overweight, I don't know that I'd be following their advice, you know what I mean? Find someone who's lived it, but beyond that, reverse engineer it and use some common sense. So if you want a particular body type, think about what sort of workout or fitness regimen that person would have. Do your research, get some professional help, but please, beyond everything else, do not starve yourself to death. Okay, I can guarantee you there are no high-performing athletes who are simply not eating. And I say this because personal experience. I had one of our young, she was probably 17 at the time. Those are birds, by the way, not me. A young athlete at the time, 17. I think she was vice captain of the school. Anyway, she was on our tennis team, but she had developed an eating disorder. And I had to escort her to the weights, the scales, because she had to weigh herself. And she had to do it supervised, because otherwise she would cheat. And if she dropped below a certain weight, she was going to be institutionalized. Again, by the way, she'd been institutionalized before, but part of the deal was, I think, that if she dropped below a certain weight, she would be institutionalized again. That was really heartbreaking and very disturbing, to be honest. And so just starving yourself, it doesn't work, okay? There's no success story of someone who just starved themselves to success. So get some good advice, get some vision coming into the new year, and do it intelligently. And have a look at some of the athletes who might have some of the body types that you want, that you aspire to, and maybe, you know, your workout will be, hey, I get to dance, or hey, I get to play tennis. It's not just, oh, I've got to go lift weights, oh, I've got to go for a run every day. I mean, if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. But I'm going to tell you, my legs are big and strong, not because of the weight room, not because I've done a lot of running, but because I found a sport that I loved. And so I was getting healthier, fitter, and stronger without it seeming like work. So let me know any questions below. I hope you have an amazing week. And as I said, last mock interview session for 2025 coming up this week, Thursday, 8 p.m. EST. There's a lot of gardening. I apologize. There was a postie before on his bike. Someone's gardening over there with a machine. I apologize for the noise. Pageantmock.com though for that last interview session, mock interview for 2025, because the week after that will be Christmas. The week after that will be New Year's. And so the next one will be in 2026. But have an amazing day. Have a think about what I said. Don't starve yourself to death, especially over the festive season. Have some time with your loved ones. And by the way, I'm not saying that you have to overeat. I'm just saying it's not healthy to overeat. It's equally not healthy to starve yourself. And it's even worse to starve yourself thinking that you'll impress a faceless judge. Don't do that. Doesn't work well.